Hello, this is OneSixth, and I'm Andrei, and today we'll speak about the languages, primarily the Russian language, and what other languages do Russians speak, and how to navigate in this language arena in Russia. So we will discuss a bit of Slavic group languages. I'll speak a little about alphabet and differences between the Latin alphabet and Cyrillic alphabet, and how do Russians understand both alphabets. Then we'll speak about the language itself, and then we will speak about how Russians speak other languages, primarily English. Okay, so let's begin with the language itself, the Russian language. Incredible language that belongs to a Slavic group of languages. And there are obviously other countries and other languages that speak similar languages, like Ukrainian or Belarusian or Bulgarian. By the way, in terms of accent, Bulgaria is the country where people, if they learn Russian, they speak almost without an accent. And vice versa. If Russians learn Bulgarian, they're also very, very similar in the way that the sounds are pronounced. Then the Serbian language that is also used in Bosnia, and the Polish, of course, and Czech, and maybe I've missed something out. But anyway, Russia is obviously the largest country out of those that I've just listed, and Russian language is kind of feels like a basic for that. Although I was in Serbia this summer, in summer 2024, and in Bosnia, and what I've noticed is that this language, the Serbian language, it feels old Russian language. So it feels like this land they kind of managed to keep authentic Russian wordings that in Russia were omitted or replaced by either Latin or Greek parts of the world or complete words. Ukrainian in that sense is the language which is kind of closer to this old Russian than Russian itself, the Russian language itself. Russians overall they barely speak other languages. So the language penetration in my generation is amounted to percent, 2%, 3%. In generation of my parents even less, and in generations of my children it's much higher. So the younger the generation, the higher the penetration of foreign languages in Russia. And Russians, they primarily speak English, of course, then goes German, Spanish, French, Italian, and as I know, Chinese is growing rapidly in Russia. By Russians, not by Chinese people coming here, but Russians, they kind of the younger Russians, they choose to study Chinese as well as English, which becomes kind of international communication tool. We'll speak about it later. So I'll say few words about the alphabet. This is how those 33 letters of today look, and as you see, most of them they resemble the Latin letters, but some of them sound differently. Like this one, it sounds R instead of P in Latin. And this is the letter N instead of H in Latin. And this is the continuation of the old Slavic Cyrillic. It is called Cyrillic script. We had much more letters, and some of them are completely gone. And but this gives a bit of routing, and this explains in the language itself. It explains why certain words they are built certain way, and the meaning of this word is often connected to this old letter, like those that I'm showing here, that are completely omitted in traditional contemporary Russian language of today. If you ever look into the Book of Prayers of Orthodox Church, they use either the traditional, the contemporary Cyrillic script, or they use the old one. They often use the old one, and this is how we Russians of today will learn the pronunciation, because we know the pronunciation of a prayer, but we don't know the letter. So we kind of find the pronunciation through the prayer, because we see the word which we recognize, the common word. Okay. There are other countries and other languages that use also Cyrillic script, and some of them are not Slavic languages, like Uzbek and Tajik and Mongolian. Those are the languages of totally different language group. Like Uzbek language is a Turkish group, and Tajik language is a Farsi, the Persian language, the same language that is spoken in Iran, and then Mongolia. Yeah, it's a completely separate language. They are also using the Cyrillic script, but they always have some additional letters to introduce some additional sounds, like Arabic sounds, into Tajik language. So they have even more letters than contemporary Russian has. What is important to note is that all Russians, we are kind of grow, even generation of my parents, we grew in double, not the language, but double alphabet system. So we all perfectly recognize Latin, even if people don't speak any of the Latin-based languages, but we perfectly recognize Latin characters, as well as we obviously recognize Cyrillic characters. So we navigate comfortably when something is written in Latin. So we understand brands, we understand all that. Yeah, no matter the generation. Yeah, it's all very well understood here. This is the difference between anyone who has grown up in a Latin-based language setting, like Polish people or Czech people, who only interacted with Latin letters, so they're not feeling comfortable. They understand Russian if Russian is spoken slowly, but they may not. They will not understand the script itself. Yeah? So Russians are in that sense they're more versatile. Yeah? Although, as I said, Russians don't speak much. Yeah? There are areas, let's say one area in Russia where the penetration of foreign languages is little high. It is St. Petersburg, probably because it was historically the kind of the touristic capital, yeah, towards the Western world. There were other touristic attractions, of course, in Russia, but that was facing the Western world. So people there generally they're kind of more open to languages. They like kind of learn easy and faster, just because they're, even in Soviet times, there have been more people coming. Therefore, they interacted with the other languages, like me, because I grew up there. Well, another thing to note is, as I promised, it is the difference between the Russian language and the let's say English language. Russian is very, very complex, yeah? And it uses more character space. So if you're translating directly something, no matter what, the business literature or the Russian classics, you will find that the English transcript of that would take approximately 30% less character space than Russian would take. And this is, I think, driven by the fact that Russian words, they have a lot of endings, and those endings are all tied to it. We have three genders, like German does. French has two, English has no. And depending on the gender of the word, the ending would differ. For adjective, for what's the pronoun, I think it's called. And we only have three tenses, opposite to English or French, where they have, I always mix it up, either 13 or 14, so a lot, but it's enough because we have so many different endings for different whatever. So if I would say я иду, I go, я иду, ты, you, идешь, он идет, and then this is the singular. Then мы идем, вы идете, они идут, which is the plural form. And it's always like that. It's always like that. In that sense, the English is a perfect international communication tool because it is so simple. People say that grammatically it's very complex, but I would say that if you compare it to Russian in the sense how the words are built up, and in fact this is very similar to other Slavic languages as well. Ukrainian is similarly built, Belarusian is similarly built, Serbian, we all have those three genders. We all have these endings. And if you compare this to English, then English sounds so much simpler. Although grammatically there are some nuances to learn, but in terms of the word forming, it's just one form. That's it. You don't have to add anything, except for the plural form, in adjectives. The one thing I will note at the end of this story is that Russian is becoming a world's kind of spiritual language. There are many people who know this, and I begin to hear this also from people from outside Russia, because there are many Russian, let's call them prophets, the masters, spiritual masters, the younger one, the elder one, who all say more or less the same thing, that Russian is becoming a spiritual tool for the world. And when I try to analyze this and find how this could, what are the roots for this idea, I think it is because it is very much connected to Sanskrit, all the Sanskrit language that is not used anymore. But we hear mantras, we have prayers, internationally, and there are many Russian words which are formed with some kind of connection to Sanskrit. Some people even say that the Sanskrit is a continuation of a very old Slavic language that existed for thousands of years, maybe dozens of thousands of years on Earth. I think if you consider learning or not learning Russian, if you have this idea in mind, then I would say it is worth it, because through that you will very much not ease up, traveling to Russia, but you will enrich yourself very much spiritually by connecting to something that other languages for some reason cannot connect to. But just please consider this as something that me as a Russian can share with you. I hope this would be of a value. See you next time.